I want some juicy gossip that made me feel like actually violently ill. It was just the most insane journey to go on. We are going out for the day, so I am going to leave the camera here and do a little montage of the day. Are we ready?
You ready, are you?
I'm ready. I need to get some water as well. Okay, bye. From the future. I did not film a lot yesterday because I was at a family party, and I'm going to go into this more in tomorrow's vlog, but I just didn't really want to film everybody, so I didn't get a lot of footage, so I haven't edited yet. I'm going to film something just to tack on to the end of the video, so if you've seen that video now, hi. I'm going to talk about my best and worst books of 2024, and I've got Goodreads on my phone, so I'm going to go through it now. It's hard to pick a definite best and worst, but I'm gonna see what I can do. I've also not quite reached my reading challenge this year, but as I started doing vlogmas, it's been basically impossible to sit and read. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna do best books, and I'm gonna start with The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I loved The Secret History so much. Like, I feel like I was already in the vibe. I already knew the vibe before I read it. Loved the dark academia vibe. I did my MA dissertation on dark academia books and like the trend and how that affected the publishing industry. And I was really, really interested in it, but I'd actually never read The Secret History. And when I was doing my research, that was said to be like the birth of this trend, because it was, I think, like 1992 or something that it came out, and it was that the birth of that. That was the dark academia part, but the Goldfinch, I'd seen it before, and I always thought, that is a long book. I think it's like 700, 800 pages, something like that, and it is a long book, and I've never read anything over maybe 600, and I thought, God, this is long. And my boyfriend, we bonded over The Secret History first of all, because we both read it, we both really loved it, and then he said to me, like, really early on in our relationship, was like, you've got to read The Goldfinch, it's so good. He didn't really tell me anything about it, but he was like, if you like The Secret History, you'll love The Goldfinch. So I said, okay. And last Christmas, I went to the Waterstones Piccadilly and I had a voucher. And I picked up The Goldfinch and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And then I read it over the summer, and it took me probably like a month and a half to read it. It was, obviously it's a long book, but oh my God, it takes you on such a journey. Essentially, you're following the protagonist's life through so many different periods, and how those different things then affect him in the other periods of his life, and the people that he met and bonded with, how they play a part in other elements of his life. And it was so intricate, and it was so like, this character, you don't just know a part of his life and a story and a part of his life, it's like, you know 10 different stories of his life, and they all piece together. And it was just the most insane journey to go on, like, reading, because I think when I read a book, you kind of, unless you want the whole life story, which is usually like a trilogy, you don't usually get that in a book. And it was the first book that I'd read where I'd gone, yeah, this is insane, like, this is how you write. So Goldfinch, without rambling too much, is number one. It's hard to pick a 2 and a 3. I had some really good books. Oh God, this is so hard. I'm gonna go with is Norwegian Wood. It's a Murakami. It is translated fiction. It's a weird book. It's a very weird book. I had read only one other translated fiction before, and it was Convenience Store Woman. And again, it was quite strange. And I wasn't really sure what to make of that, but I knew that Norwegian Wood was essentially like a modern classic, and I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, I might need to look this up, but I feel like it was written in the 80s or 90s, then translated in the early 2000s. Again, it was that intricacy of the character, and I was just like, I do not understand this person. Like, I do not get this guy. He is bizarre. And you see the stories, like maybe 3 or so different people that he has relationships with, and you see those different stories and how they're sort of pieced together throughout the story. The way it was written, I just felt like I was there. I've never been to Japan before and I'd love to go, but it's almost like I could really picture where this person lived and how their life was happening and how it was going on. And like I said a minute ago, the main character was an odd guy. He was odd. And I didn't bond with the... is that weird? Like, bond with the character? Or, like, I didn't feel like I would be friends with this character. But it was almost like morbid fascination. I was like, what's he going to do next? But I think, like, the way of writing, especially Murakami, but also just in general, like, the... translated fiction, but specifically Japanese translated fiction, I find that it's very, like, there's a moral, or there's something that we need to learn from this story. And I found that with quite a few of the translated fictions that I've read this year, and it's like, they make you think, and they make you question things about your own life. Again, it's those real, like, intricacies of character and how each character is so well thought out and how they're all connected. It's very similar to The Goldfinch in that way, not like story-wise, but that's what I am interested in. So I'm going to put Norwegian Wood at number 2. Number 3, I have to say, it's between 2, and I'm going to tell you what they are, and then I'm going to say what I went with. It is between Blue Sisters by Coco... Is it Coco Mellors or Mellors? I'm going to go Mellors. I'm going to go with Penance, and the reason for that is I loved Blue Sisters so much. I love the way it was written. Again, I could really picture the characters, their houses, their lives, how they were all connected. But Penance was actually sickening. And I also read Boy Parts earlier this year as well, but that made me feel like actually violently ill, and I can't even put that on there because it was so good, but I actually can't rank that one in my top because it just made me feel ill. Whereas Penance, it was like I was literally addicted to reading the story. I read it in, I think, like a day and a half, and it's a fairly long book. I actually do have Penance. I ended up reading this on my Kindle, but I had the physical copy as well. It's 430 pages long. Do you know what? I was going to say, if you're into horror, I hate horror, thriller, anything like that. I really don't like it. I don't like feeling squeamish. I just want to feel like happy and nice. But I do find myself dabbling in a bit of like crime occasionally, and I enjoy like psychological crime thrillers occasionally. Like, I can't read it all the time because it actually does mess with your head a little bit, especially when it's that graphic. But the fact that a writer can make you feel all of those emotions to the point where you're like, I need to know more, I need to read more, I need to know what happens, and you're feeling all of these emotions for these characters and situations, and you're almost, it was one of those ones where it's almost like you're really questioning, again, your own morals. This is where it's quite interesting with what I enjoy about books. It's like, for me, it's not a genre, it's like how it makes me feel. Norwegian Wood made me question my morals. This also made me question my morals. And I was thinking, like, these girls that were involved in this crime, what were their backgrounds? And you get to read about each girl that's involved, you get all of their background information, and it's like you end up feeling almost like, not sympathetic, but you can see their background and how they got to the situation. You're like, if only an adult intervened, or if only this happened, or whatever. And then you have another thought in your mind where you think, well, are they just born like that? Are they just psychopaths? And it's like the difference between which girl is a psychopath, which girl had a bad upbringing and ended up in the wrong crowd. And it's a real question of morals, and it's like, how do you feel? Do you even bother having any sympathy for those people and just for the victim? or do you have to think about their side of the story as well? And I kept having to put it down and be like, this is too much. And I read it when I was on holiday and I was sat by the pool and I'd be reading it on my Kindle and I'd be like, put it down, go for a swim. If you like books that grip you and get to the point where you actually cannot physically put this down until you know what happens, you will love that book. And shout out to Boy Parts, because I flipping loved that book, but like I said, violently unwell. I think that brings us to our worst books of 2024. Now, I read some bad books this year, and I don't like to shout out bad books because I feel bad for the author, because they've obviously put a lot of like effort into the books. I don't usually like doing it, but I think I have some real like opinions on certain books and I feel bad that I don't like these books. So I'm going to talk about it just briefly and not in enough detail. And I know that lots of people do like these books, so I also don't feel as bad because I know that they do get a lot of love. First book, and it was the first book I read of the year, Beartown by Frederick Backman. I literally hated this book. Like, I have never wanted a book to finish more than this book. It was long, it was boring, I did not care about the characters at all, I didn't care about the town. It's all about ice hockey, I don't care about ice hockey. I just got annoyed at the characters. I was like, you're annoying me. The story dragged on for so long and I was like, come on, let's like get to the point here. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And actually no, I'm going to say one more thing. We picked that book for book club and it wasn't my pick. Turns out no one else read it because they started reading it, didn't like it, and I suffered through till the end and I didn't even pick the bloody book. Second pick is my second book of the year. I did not start off well. Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. Got loads of love, and after Beartown I thought I just want something fun, something easy to read, and I read that book and it was like, first of all, there was talk about COVID. I don't want to read about COVID. We're over that now. I don't want to think about it. Let's move on. Second of all, and the most annoying part, was the main character had such a victim complex, and I'm not being funny, I just cannot deal with people in general who like constantly think somebody owes them something. And when I'm reading a character and I have to spend a whole book with a character that acts like that, oh god, it annoys me so much. This woman was supposed to be like in her 40s and she was like just arguing with the secondary character constantly about I don't even know what. I thought, do you know what, you need to grow up, you're supposed to be 40. Could not be bothered to deal with that. And I read it and I was just going, oh like that. And then it was like going back to the COVID bit, like I'm already annoyed at this character and then suddenly it's COVID and it's like we get a whole chapter or 2 chapters or whatever of them emailing each other, like the two. I just thought, I just don't need this. I actually just don't need to be reminded of this. Third book I'm going for, and I feel really bad about this, but I'm gonna do it. The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary. I loved The Flat Share, okay? Disclaimer, loved it. Finished it super quick. The Wake Up Call, again, for me, it's just all about character. I just found her a bit whiny and dreary, and she was like, it was like a enemies to lovers, and it's like, for me, enemies, I want like exes or like someone that has like hurt you and been really nasty to you, or like nasty to your friend or family or something, or it's like I want some juicy gossip, okay, for enemies to lovers. I don't want, this is what it was. Oh, last Christmas I sent him a card and said I liked him and then he kissed my best friend. Oh, like, oh my god. And turns out I didn't even, well, spoiler, turns out he didn't even get the card. But I just think, oh, like, come on, let's grow up a little bit. Like, why are you doing that? Just, if you like them, just say. I just thought, and then you're spending a year being annoyed at them and you work with them, like, I could not think of anything worse. I could not think of anything worse than being at a job like that and hating who you work with. I cannot imagine being a fully grown adult, working in a job like that and hating somebody for something so trivial, because I wouldn't hate them, I'd just be embarrassed. I'd be like, oh my god, they've like pied me so bad right now, I'm just gonna pretend it didn't happen. It was just, again, painful to watch and be a part of. Not watch, but I feel like I'm in it with these characters, and I just think if I was you, I'd just shake them and be like, please get over it. Like, where are their friends? Where are these characters' friends? Why are they not telling them to shut up and get a grip? Like, I really cannot cope. I've read 27 books this year. I was supposed to get to 30, but I'm trying not to beat myself up. I'm doing art classes, I'm renovating the house, I'm now vlogging again, and I'm doing a flipping nano degree. So I'm trying not to beat myself up about that. My only time to read now is really on my commute or in the mornings when I wake up early. So I think I'm going to try and get myself into a good routine next year with reading, but I'm also not beating myself up about the amount that I read. Like, I enjoy reading and I don't want it to become a chore. I just like to think that I don't want to be embarrassed by the amount of books that I have or haven't read. I think it can sometimes get a bit competitive, but for me it's more about the passion that I have for the stories that I'm reading, and how I'll seek out more stories by the same author if I love it, and how those books make me feel are the most important part of the journey for me, not the quantity. And it's something that I wanted to share because I know that there's probably a lot of other people like me that don't read super quickly but do feel really passionate about the books that they read and that they love. I'm gonna go now, and I hope you enjoyed today's vlog. I know it's a bit random and all over the place, but I didn't want to leave you with nothing. And I'm gonna go now and go back to Phil's and make some sausage rolls, which you will see in tomorrow's vlog. Good night and have a good evening.